way in which the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after Noach comes out of the Teva, so he gives him the sign, and it's an amazing sign. It's an amazing concept that as he comes out, we know that last week we spoke about. Yesterday we spoke about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to a certain degree people the ability, the capacity to move out of what was during. In the original part of creation, they were now able to eat flesh. However, they had to be careful, and there were certain mitzvahs that they were given in order to kind of maintain them within that context of rebuilding the world. And then the Torah says the following: and then Hashem says to Noach and to his children, he says, now you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to establish my covenant with you and with your children after you, and all the animals and all the birds, and with everyone, there's going to be this now new covenant that's going to be set up. And now this is where that famous statement is. He says, I will never ever destroy the world with mehamabul, with the waters of a flood again. There'll never be another mabul of this nature, but it will destroy the entire world. Zot otabrit, and then Hashem says, "This is the otabrit. This is the sign of the covenant that I'm giving between you and your children, and not only with you. It's not only with Am Yisrael. It's not only with people, human beings. What it's also is actually with all nefesh chaya, with all living creatures. All living creatures will now have the same covenant. And what is that? Et kashti natati bi'anan. I've put my keshet. I've put this rainbow into the clouds, and it'll be a covenant between me and the land, and it'll be in the clouds, and there's this constant conversation about how the clouds is, when I see it in the clouds, I'll remember my covenant that I've done with everybody. So he says, I make this promise, and I bring in the keshet. The keshet will be the symbol of that promise, the symbol of that covenant, and you must know that when it is there, you must remember this as a covenant forever. So this is interesting because this is the only covenant that is made between Hashem and Noach and the people that were with him on the Teva. And Rav Soloveitchik asks the question, he says that why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu not give Noach a brocha, like a specific brocha for him? We know that we gave a brocha, Pru, that they must go and multiply, and they must go and create and settle the world. But why don't they get a specific brocha for Noach himself and for his family? And Rav Soloveitchik says that the way we can understand that is by understanding the keshet. What's the thing about the keshet? The keshet is an amazing thing. The keshet is these beautiful colors that exist in the cloud that are a result of light reflecting through the water at a specific angle, which enables the white light to separate itself into all these different colors. What that means is that if we look simply at white light has within it potential of incredible color. We spoke about the Chizkuni, and we said that the Chizkuni started to rebuke the people. So we said the Chizkuni told that Noach started to rebuke the people, and because he started to rebuke the people, that gave him the brocha of children. But the rebuke was not enough, because all Noach was doing was telling people to change. What Rav Soloveitchik points out, that the difference between Noach and Avraham is that Avraham davened for everybody. Avraham he was making sure that we know that when it came, even storm was the most terrible thing. We'll get to that, please God, when we get to those parashas. That Avraham davened for storm. Avraham was always davening for those people that were going to be impacted negatively by their own behavior. Noach never davened. Noach may have rebuked, but he never davened for them. Why did he not daven for them? Because what's the purpose of davening? The purpose of davening, as I'll explain to us, is it enables us to bring out the potential within that type of situation. So, for example, there's a wedding and it's beautiful, it's a great simcha. So you daven at that time so that the simcha should even be greater, that the couple coming together should enjoy that simcha and should be able to maintain that world of shalom all the time, because davening is about bringing out potential. Noach never davened for anybody because Noach never saw the potential in people, never saw what was right. And so therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you don't see the potential in people because you're not shining the right light in them. I'm going to show you that if you shine the right light onto a drop of water, the light can be unbelievable colors. And if it can be done on a drop of water, how much more so on a human being, that a human being can show, can be so great and filled with so much. And so therefore we see the Soloveitchik tells us from the Gemara in Ksubas that there's a story between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, was there ever a rainbow during the time of Rabbi Yeshua? And he says, absolutely there was. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says to him, if that's the case, then there's a problem. Because why? Because he says that if he had been so great, then Hashem wouldn't have needed to make a rainbow appear. Because the purpose of the rainbow is to remind us, the human beings, that every single one of us has the ability to reflect incredible, beautiful light into the world, to perceive the hidden potential within every person. And so therefore, we understand that the reason for a rainbow coming is actually to remind us of our shortcomings in the manner in which we perceive each other. And so therefore, the Shulchan Aruch tells us that what happens, haro'eh keshet, if you see a keshet, if you see this beautiful rainbow in the sky, and some of them are magnificent. I remember we were driving down from Cape Town, up from Cape Town, and we took instead of taking the national roads, we took the regional roads. So there are no cars on the regional roads. There's a tractor every 45 minutes that's trundling down. But because there's nothing there, it's just absolutely open. So we saw these, and just after a thunderstorm, we saw these beautiful rainbows, but like rolling rainbows, like 3 or 4 rainbows all in one. And it's absolutely beautiful. And you just want to call everybody, and we don't take photographs of it. But the halacha says, Aroy Keshet, if a person sees a rainbow, it says that a person who sees it should make this bracha. What's the bracha? Zocher abrit. So Hashem remembers the covenant. And he is trustworthy in the covenant to fulfill his word. What's his word? His word is that he won't destroy the world. Again, in the same way that he did. You shouldn't look at it too much. So the Mishnah Berurah says, it's not appropriate to go and say, oh, guys, come look at the rainbow. Why? Because of the reason of motzi diba. So motzi diba is a pasuk. And the pasuk says, motzi diba hu ksil. A person who tells bad news is a ksil, is a fool. So therefore, for example, when you hear of bad news, when you hear of a tragedy, when you have something, it's not appropriate. And this is the halacha. It's not appropriate to run around telling everybody of the bad news. We shouldn't be bearers of bad tidings unless there is a to'eles. So for example, if a person passes away, so then you have to tell the people that it's pertinent to. But you don't just tell everybody a person passes away. You don't have to tell bad news. We live in a world where we are so insensitive to bad news and to tragedy. Everything in the newspaper is all about bad news, but that's an anti-Judaic value concept. We're supposed to tell good things. We're supposed to speak about the goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not always telling about the negativity and the terrible things that are happening in the world. So if a person sees the keshet, it says the Mishnah Berurah, it's not benai to tell everybody to come and look because of motzi diba. What's the motzi diba? What's the bad news? So if we understand what Rav Soloveitchik explained about Noach, the bad news is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying to us, humankind, you're not seeing the goodness in each other. And if we can see the goodness in each other, then we don't need the rainbow to be there. And so therefore, the halacha is very simple, that you make that bracha. The halacha points out, by the way, that in the same way as with thunder and lightning, when there's thunder and lightning, you have to make a bracha when you see it, and it's coming now into the season, so it's important for us to understand that. When you see thunder, also when you see lightning, you say Oisei Ma'aseh Gracious. When you hear thunder, you say Shekoch V'Vurasa Imalei Olam. 2 completely different brachas, because that's our minhag. If you see the lightning and the thunder in one, then you can just say one of the brachas. You don't have to say that. You don't have to say them separately. But normally we see the lightning, and then a few seconds later we see the thunder. So we don't have the opportunity to see them together, and therefore we say the two brachas. But the halacha is that you have to say it each time there's a cloud formation. So when there are clouds, and then there's thunder and lightning, and if those dissipate and then they form again, and then there's a new thunderstorm, so you have to say the bracha again. So too with the keshet. If there is a formation of clouds, then there's a keshet, there's a rainbow, you make the bracha, and then if that formation dissipates and then there's a new keshet, then again, you'd say the bracha again. And that's not like many of the other brachas that we speak about, that, for example, if you see the sea, you don't say the bracha every time you see the sea. You only say it once in 30 days if you haven't seen the sea before. And the Mishnah Berurah points out that we shouldn't look too intensely at the keshet, at the rainbow. He says, if you look at it too much and you really look too much, the Rashi got a whole discussion about that in his book Ala Tshuva. That's worthwhile looking at. If anybody wants it, just let me know, and I'll photocopy it and send it to you. But the idea is that we don't look intensely at the keshet. It's not something to celebrate understanding, but rather something to contemplate the fact that there is this keshet in the sky, and rather what one should do is just look at it, you make the bracha, and then you move on. And once we understand that, and for one more minute that we have left, just want to point out, once we understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings Noach out of the teva, he shows him the keshet, and in showing him the keshet, what he shows him is that he wasn't able to perceive the goodness in every single person. We can then understand what happens next, because Noach realizes that perhaps he's to blame, at least a little bit, for part of what happened to the world. Perhaps he was such a powerful person that if he had davened for people, if he had tried with people, he had seen people, he would have been able to bring them a little bit closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if that's the case, then we can understand why what happens is Noach goes through a very down period, very dark period. And that's a dark period where instead of celebrating the world, what he does is he drinks, he gets drunk. And we know the story that comes from that, which we, Yezrat Hashem, will discuss tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everybody. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure.
You too.